Check, check, 1 2 1 2. For the people that's going to tune in and watch this on the playback, you with your host, Deshaun, one half of this platform, Envy Online, where we do a lot of sports coverage, hip hop, and current politics. And today I got a special guest, Key. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. So as I was talking before we got cut off and had to start over, um, somebody hit me because they see I do a lot of sports content within Division One basketball. I cover a lot of conferences. I cover the CAA, which you're familiar with. I
Mm-hmm.
cover the American East, do a little MEAC, and the WNBA. And somebody asked me, they said, "Hey, why are you so like infatuated with the women's side of the game?" I don't know if they was trying to be funny or whatever.
Right.
And I had to sit back and reflect. I was like, "Oh, I know. There was two girls from my community in Albany, New York, who used to bust my ass, and I'm not afraid to say it. That'd be the person I'm sitting here with, Key, and another young lady. I don't know what she's doing in her personal life. Hopefully she's doing well. Her name is Deanna. So Kiana and Deanna used to bust my ass all the time. And ever since then, since the 90s, hate to date us, but since the 90s, I always had respect for the women's side of the game. So that's when I reached out to you. I was like, yo, I got to get an interview because you inspired what I'm doing in media as far as following the women's side of the game. So I wanted to give you your flowers and just catch up with you.
Yo, I appreciate that. I really do. Nah, that's dope. Yeah, because I'll be honest, I never knew that.
Yeah, you can't forget when somebody's snatching your ankles and talking shit to you at the same time because you was vicious with talking shit while you was snatching ankles.
I had to. Come on now. The only girl out there with a bunch of guys.
Oh yeah. So growing up in the area that we grew up in, what drew you to the game of basketball?
I mean, I lived across the street from the park. That's
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Street. But then also, my pops refed at the new courts.
Okay.
So
Other side of town.
I always did the book at the new courts when he would referee games. So I was always around basketball and honestly just sports. My father always watched basketball, football, and baseball. So yeah, so that was it.
How early did you start off? Did you start off real young, like 3 4 5, or was it when you got?
No, I moved over to Kobe Street like third grade. So, playing in the park, that was around like 8 years old. But I didn't
Mm,
actually play on a formal team until about, I think it was fifth or sixth grade.
all right. Now I know you said you didn't follow any type of team growing up, but was there somebody that your father or yourself that you saw growing up that you wanted to model your game after?
Oh, of course. Come on now. Iverson. Any point guard in the 90s.
Yeah,
If they say
that
they
seemed
if
about
they
right with that
if they
crossover.
don't if they act like they weren't trying to emulate Iverson's game, either one, they weren't a baller, or two, they're lying.
So as I alluded to earlier, with a lot of ankles you were snatching all over the courts. When was the moment that you said to yourself as a young lady, "Hey man, this is for me. This is I'm gonna start practicing more and really put effort into this."
Honestly, I don't think there was a specific day or experience. And I say that because I'm just competitive. So,
Eh,
hooping, I love to compete. And that's something you don't know until a person doesn't know they love to compete until they compete,
mm-hmm.
right? And so it wasn't until um, being the only girl at the court, it go from not being picked at all. The guy saying, "Oh, you too small to play," because it was grown men out there too, high school cats, grown men. So first it was, "Oh, you too small to play, you can't play at all." Then it was being last getting picked, and then it was being in that first three getting picked.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, but obviously there was always guys that were better than me. So I just love to compete. I honestly never really even. I would say it wasn't until, yeah. I love the game. I fell in love with the game. I'll be honest. I just fell in love with the game. I never at any point had a moment where it was like, oh, I can be good at this. Nah, I think Kobe Street, between my father and experiences at Kobe Street and the YMCA,
Mm.
yeah, my confidence skyrocketed. So it was just a matter of wanting to compete against new people.
That's dope that you say that because what we see now, I don't want to call these new athletes prima donnas because they look like they all train together inside on the end courts. Nobody looks like they fall on the concrete and scuff their knees or ankles anymore.
Right.
How did you playing outside on these courts, the new courts, Kobe Street, or wherever you played at, prepared you for what you did in elementary school, and then when you transition up to playing high school ball?
Um, I mean, outside basketball is like they call jail ball.
Hmm.
There's a lot of fouls, a lot of hacking that there's no whistle. And if you call foul too many times, you soft. So
Yeah,
nobody wants you on the court. So you just got to play through it. And also, um, you don't have a choice. In order to continuously get picked, you got to be good at multiple things. There's
hmm.
nobody on the outside court like, oh, he a good rebounder, so we gonna make
Nah,
sure
you
we.
got to shoot
Nah,
all
that's
that.
not. They not strategic like that. They just like, can you get a bucket?
Hmm.
So it's just a matter of, can I pass? Obviously, playing with the guys, I couldn't drive as much early on. So it was about being a good passer, being a good ball handler to get myself open, and obviously being able to shoot the rock.
So, if my research serves me correct, you attended Bishop McGinn
Yep,
for
you're
high
right.
school ball.
For
Um,
for 3 years, and then my senior year, I had to transfer to Colony Rivalry
okay.
School. It was rough.
So at Bishop McGinn, which was very competitive at our time, if I
Mm-hmm.
recall,
Big Ten.
and I remember them writing. You was getting a couple of articles for your junior year,
Mm-hmm.
like you was blowing up. Now I don't recall this, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. Did you guys were in the running for state at that time?
No, no,
Mm,
we didn't. We never won section. We never won. What was it? Section two.
second, yeah.
Yeah, we never won section two champs or nothing like that. We always fell short early in the tournament, but yeah, we didn't make it. We didn't make it that far.
Wait, hold up. You said your senior year, so you was in the transfer portal before they had the transfer portal. You in the transfer portal back in '03. Oh wow. Hold
No,
up.
high
I just
school,
caught
high
that. Yeah.
school.
Yeah. You was
Yeah,
in the
it
transfer
was.
portal.
Yeah, trust me, that was not a favorable experience.
Is it because you said now I know Colony has like different schools because I grew up in Colony too. Like my mother lived out there.
Hmm.
Is it because the area or was it just the overall experience?
So two reasons. One, Albany County is different than
Yeah.
the city of
Then
Albany,
yeah, yeah.
so there's that. Um, And when you're not from the county of Albany and you're an
Mm-hmm.
outsider coming there, you're treated
Okay.
like an outsider. So there's that. So that was the school experience, right? But the basketball side of it was the coach at the time. She wasn't fond of me
Mm,
because obviously Bishop again and Colony, we competed against each other.
okay.
So she wasn't fond of me. I think for both basketball reasons and personal biases. So,
Gotcha.
but my teammates were great. Like my teammates. My teammates were everything. My teammates. Um, I loved my teammates. Flat out loved my teammates. But yeah, coaching staff. Nah.
So you didn't get love from that coaching staff, but obviously you were getting college offers.
Right.
So before you accepted the school you went into, I want to get this because everybody experience is different.
Hmm.
I got other friends who were athletes and stuff. What did that first offer feel like for you and your family when you got that first offer in the mail?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't remember, but I'm gonna
Mm,
tell you something though. Back in that time frame, like we didn't have social media and
no
all of that,
YouTube
right?
yet.
So at that time, I vividly remember that the top schools at that time, like the schools that got the women's schools that got the most notoriety, you had Tennessee, you had UConn,
Hmm.
UNC, you had Duke. That was pretty much it, like for women's basketball at that time. You
Mm.
had a couple other schools that may have gotten a little bit of notoriety, but like nationally known, always talked about on a year by year basis, those were the top four schools.
Salute to Pat Summons, rest in peace.
Right. And so, me being who I am, um, it felt like if I didn't get an offer from one of them four schools, that's how it was
Mm.
just like,
Okay.
because you got to understand, I didn't grow up with aspirations to go to college. I went to college because I could play basketball.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's
So
interesting. So, what was the decision for you to? I got a couple questions. I'm gonna follow up on that for because that's interesting.
you
What
weren't
was
prepared
the?
for that.
Nah, that threw me for a loop because I remember you being smart in the schools we went to and
But I
stuff
never
like
liked
that.
school.
Ah,
I never like yo. I'll tell you something, and this is like I have an issue with the traditional school system because not everybody learns the same way.
gotcha. Okay.
And so, yes, I was smart in school, but to me, school isn't teaching you anything important. One,
All
two,
right.
growing up at the time we grew up, we didn't have a choice but to be smart in school.
Yeah, you got a point about that for
And so,
multitude of reasons.
yeah, school. I never liked school because it couldn't keep my attention. So, obviously living at home with your parents, you definitely gonna finish high school. But aspirations to
Yeah.
do more than that, I didn't. It wasn't desirable.
Mm. So the decision to choose George Mason, what went into that decision? Were the other schools that had your interest?
My assistant coach, Marcel Harrison, big ups to Marcel, from Troy, New York.
Okay. Five
She
one eight.
so there was that familiarity. Um, and when I visited a couple other schools, like I visited St. Bonaventure. Um,
That would have been close to home,
right,
downstate New
but
York.
that's out near Buffalo. It's like 60.
George Mason in Virginia.
We talking 5 feet of snow guaranteed.
Okay.
It's in the
You was
middle of
tired of that.
nowhere.
You was tired of that weather. All right.
And it's in a real small. I don't know if you've been to St. Bon, but it's in the
One
middle of
time, yeah.
nowhere. It's a small
Mm.
town. I went. I think I went to Providence. It just none of them had really that feel. And when I went to
Mm.
Mason, like I said, Marcel Harrison was super cool, and she actually came to visit me on Kobe Street. She sat on my stoop
Yeah.
at Kobe Street, and
That's
we
big
could.
right
I
there.
might
That's a
even have a
first.
picture of us, but she came to Kobe Street and sat on the stoop.
That's huge right there.
Yo, that's recruiting.
That is. Especially in the area where we didn't have social media. There was no Facebook at that time.
Exactly.
That's dope. So now since we got the sports out the way, what did you major in since you didn't like the academic part?
So I
Sports
majored in accounting.
management? Oh, all right.
Yeah, I was always it was always going to be numbers or computers. So I majored in accounting.
So before I get into your college experience, we talked about it a little bit when you was talking about the four major schools getting a lot of rep.
Hmm.
And as I mentioned, partially outside of Gina Oriema, there was a lot of strides that Pat Summer made, especially with Title IX
Yep.
for the women's game. So I want to ask all athletes that I come in contact with, what did Pat Summit mean to you as a collegiate athlete, and what do you take away for what did she do for the game?
So I tell you, the first camp I ever went to was an invite only Pat Summit camp. It was my first time on a plane, and I was by myself.
Mm,
Um, we didn't have cell phones back then, so my father sent me with a roll of quarters so that I could
mm,
use it. I had a layover to Knoxville, so when got to the layover in the airport, I had to call him, let him know I landed, I was safe. Got on the next plane, got to Knoxville, called him again, let him know I made it. Um, Pat Summit, it's like it goes beyond saying that she paved the way for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Um, as well as the players who came through her program. Shamika Holsclaw. Like when I went to the camp, I think Shamika had just graduated the year before, but I ended up meeting like Tamika Catchings, Susan Butts, I think her name is. They had a point guard. Can't remember her formal name, but she went by the name Ace.
Okay.
So yeah, and Michelle Snow. I got a picture with Michelle Snow. So yeah, it was just that's when I realized that the practice team had guys on it
Mm,
because we got to see the girls, we got to see the team run like some drills and stuff, and their practice players was there as well. And that's when I was like, yo, she makes them play against guys too. There's obviously some benefit in that. You know what I mean?
competitive nature, yeah.
Yeah. So
Physicality.
so yeah, it was cool. But she foot stomped discipline, being coachable. Because I was about maybe 11 years old when I went to that camp. So yeah, I remember discipline, being coachable, um, and always striving for greatness. And she was always gonna push her players, even in that little drill that they was putting on for us young campers. Like she was yelling at them then. It was always about striving for perfection, regardless if you get it or not. That's what you aiming for.
That's a hell of an experience at 11 years old.
Yeah, it was pretty dope.
So you got a chance to get away from home,
Hmm.
go down to Virginia. What kind of adjustment was that for a person like yourself?
Oh, it was huge. Um, it was cool though because you know playing AAU basketball, I was fortunate enough to have already traveled to over like 20 states by the age of 17, which is not
Mm,
a common thing for an inner city kid in the 90s, early 2000s, right? So basketball did that for me. But when I got to George Mason is a very, has a lot of international students. So majority of the brown individuals at that school, a lot of them are from Africa. A lot of them are
that's what's up.
Ethiopian and Sudanese. So that was totally, talking to people and they have a totally different experience than you growing up. I'm talking about going across the street to the park, to the corner store, things like that. And they're diplomats. They have
Mm,
no idea.
yeah,
They
that's a
got
totally different way of
drivers,
life.
they
Hmm.
got cleaners. Like
You
we
so
grew up two
somebody
totally
washing your
different
laundry?
worlds. So yeah, it's a commuter school. A lot of people at that school, they're from the area, so there wasn't as much campus life in comparison to when I went to Delaware State. Total complete 180 of an experience.
Yeah, you switched over to a HBCU, which I'm gonna get into in a
Right.
second. That's dope. Um, your first couple years at George Mason, what was the best takeaway that you would take away from that experience?
Well, I made a lot of mistakes. I had some growing pains at Mason, but
Freshman and sophomore, you're gonna make mistakes.
yeah, yeah. Thank big ups to the coaching staff because Lord, yeah, they gave me, they had a
They
lot of
had to
faith in
they
me
had to reel you back in.
for multiple times. I, I was like a bass, just constantly fighting against that rail.
Mm,
But I would say maturity.
okay,
Being at Mason, I had to mature. Um, but the thing is, the mistakes at Mason is what made me mature and be a better person and become a better player for Delaware State.
okay.
Unfortunately, Mason got most of my mistakes. So, but that's so it's like, what I learned from Mason wasn't applied until I left Mason.
That's usually what happens in life.
Right.
So you hit the transfer portal again, and you went over to a good school. Shout out to DSU. My cousin
Yes.
graduated from here as well. What went into that thought process of choosing Delaware State? Was that a recruitment situation or?
No. So I got into some trouble, lost my scholarship, um, and I was actually considering going home. Again, like I said, I didn't enjoy school. So
There would have been
one of the
some people yelling at you if you'd went back home.
right. So a couple of the coaches was like, "Look, yeah, you made some mistakes, but you can bounce back, and you need to." Nothing good is going to come out of going back home. So I listened, and they called a couple of coaches that they were, connected with. And so I did a visit to Coppin State, and I
In
did a
Maryland.
visit to Delaware State.
Okay.
And honestly, I chose Delaware State. It was two reasons. One, I knew if I was getting in trouble at Mason and Fairfax, Virginia, I was definitely going to get in trouble in Baltimore.
Yeah, I got some family in Bmore. I was there before the wire.
So there was that. And then the second reason was they had something. Oh, it was mandatory that I had to live in
Yep.
the dorms.
For that first year, my cousin said
And
for the first year.
I got spoiled at Mason because as freshmen we lived in apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So when they was like, "Yeah, you got to live in the dorms," I'm like, I didn't have to do that my freshman year at George Mason. I'm definitely not doing that my junior year. That's not gonna work. So I went to Del State.
That's what's up. How was the campus life at the HBCU, and how did that influence you?
Oh, it was great. They had the sororities and fraternity life was way more active at Del State. Um, but also, you have Wesley College down the street. So you have another college that's nearby because it's in Dover, Delaware. There's not
Yeah,
much
when
in
I drove
Dover.
out there was a
Right.
racetrack.
There's not much in Dover, but Dover Downs, Delaware State, and Wesley College. That's it. And then obviously the graduates who stayed in Dover for whatever reason, for work or whatever, they're still on campus. So campus life was live on a regular basis. And I mean, so now you dealing with, and it's a total 180, not just also because the people there, majority of them are from inner city neighborhoods.
Hmm.
So it's easy to get a spades tournament going on. We had
You
midnight
better know how to
basketball.
play spades. All them black people there.
Hey, we had midnight basketball. They had an auxiliary gym. I don't even think they have it anymore. They done put a lot of money into that campus like 2 years after I left. But they had an auxiliary gym because I had to sit out my first year. No transfer portal. It was real life.
Yeah, you had to sit. Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
I didn't get that. I wasn't fortunate to get that benefit, but because I had to sit out, I was always in an auxiliary gym playing with the guys, the regular students. So it was kind of like being back on Kobe Street, because now I'm playing bump with all the guys on campus. You at the auxiliary, and it was a hot box, and we would be in there. It could be 11 p.m., midnight. People are hooping. No way that was happening on Mason campus.
That's what's up. Um, you stated that George Mason got a lot of your mistakes, and it gave you time to mature and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was looking up your stats, not to be a stat watcher, it showed that you led the team your junior year in assist and no, your senior year in assists and steals, if that serves me correct,
So that would have
for
been at Del
Delaware
State
State.
my
Yeah.
senior year. Yeah.
So what transferred over from you saying you made a lot of mistakes, you even had a situation where you had to transfer, to then turning up and leading Del's DSU in multiple categories and having some breakout games that you had?
Right. Well, I mean, passing and defense was always uh, my signature. So even at Mason, um, passing and defense, that was my signature. No matter where I was, and throughout high school, college, even past college, it was. I never forget. After college, I played against a girl who we played against each other in college, and I'll never forget. She said to me in a game because I was scoring. She said, "Since when did you become a scorer? You were always just a defender." And I said, "I'm glad you remember that." Like, passing. When I was younger, I used to watch NBA classics. Magic Johnson, outside of Allen Iverson, Magic Johnson was my favorite player. And watching NBA classics, if if there was a YouTube channel for my past games, it would show the 3/4 court pass. I stole that from Magic Johnson. Like that, to me, that was the ultimate. Crossovers and dropping dimes was the ultimate oohs and ahs.
So real quick before I transition, Magic Johnson, your number one point guard on your list?
Absolutely. 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 I know that there can be plenty of debates, but Magic.
You the third person that gave it up to Magic, so
Anybody you name will
for
probably
me
be
it's Magic too because I'm old.
will probably be after him though. And I'm not saying that there weren't great point guards during his time or before, but a lot of great point guards that people name are after him. So you got to pay homage to those who paved the way.
Definitely. So our generation from because like I said, not to date us, but we're from a previous generation. We didn't get to experience, or you didn't get to experience the NIL
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. You see what's going on right now. They getting the bag right now.
Right.
What is your thoughts on what's going on? Do you think it helps the athlete? Do you think it empowers the game of college basketball? What are your overall thoughts on NIL?
So I'm glad the athletes are getting paid. Let me start with that because at the end of the day, there's a less than 1% chance of athletes going pro. So, um, dedicating your life, like in college, you don't have a life. You wake up, you train, you go to, you'll probably do strength and conditioning. You'll get some breakfast, you'll go to class, you'll go to individuals, then you might go to team practice, and then you got your late classes again because you weren't able to take classes during that like 12 to 4 block. So nine times out of
Mm-hmm.
10, you got night classes too. So you don't have a life. And you're not able to work. A lot of times you're not able to do internships. And your body goes through a lot. You get injuries, people tearing ACLs, MCLs, and those injuries, those are lifelong effects. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So I'm glad student athletes are getting paid. They deserve it, especially with the amount of money that we're being made off their backs. Absolutely, they should get paid. Now, on the flip side,
There's a
I
but.
feel like it definitely has some negative impact with because I think the NIL and the transfer portal, like it's it's preventing holding kids accountable because now you it's funny I talked to a friend of mine and she was like because I had made a comment about a star player getting too much playing time and I felt like that player was going to get injured.
Okay. Okay.
This is a college player, right?
Okay.
That player did get injured.
Mm.
And what I said was, you got to take them out the game. Like they're your star player. They're getting all these minutes, but not only are they getting minutes, they're taking majority of the load for the team. It's one thing to be out on the floor and um, you know, you're a role player. 40 minutes as a role player is totally different than 40 minutes as Kobe. So,
That's a good point.
but my homegirl was like, Key, you got to understand. Nowadays, if a player doesn't get what they want, they leave.
That goes to what just happened to Dawn Staley.
Exactly. So it's like you gotta coach them differently. And I'm like, yeah, but a little I'm glad they have the freedom to move as they want, but I think it's backfiring, or not maybe not even backfiring. I think it's preventing these student athletes from developing in a way where like as a person. Because you
That's a
don't
good point.
always get the opportunity to just run away from a problem or controversy or a hurdle.
That's a hell of a point.
So, it's one thing if the coach is holding you back and preventing you from growing or from preventing you from shining. Okay, cool. I get that. But if you're not doing your job and that's the reason you're not getting the minutes and you transfer because of that, well, instead of putting in the work to get better, you just changing jobs. Nah, I don't respect that.
So can I ask this question?
Come on.
Because I know you watching. Do you think Malaysia Fawali made the correct decision?
For her, yes. I'm gonna tell you something else. She made it 1 year later than I thought she would.
You thought she was going to jump right after the championship?
Absolutely. Her first year,
What was the reason? Because I'm hearing, well, not I'm hearing because I don't know nobody in her camp, but the fans are saying they didn't like it seemed like she didn't want to be held accountable for lapses in defenses and stuff. That's why I asked that question.
listen, I told me, so me and my father are big Dawn Staley fans. So as a result, we're big South Carolina fans. After her freshman year, I said to my pops, I said, she might transfer. She got the Under Armour deal.
There's
You
a
got you
sneaker
got
deal, I think. Yeah.
you got Magic Johnson making tweets about you, and you not getting a whole lot of playing time.
What, 15 minutes or something like that?
Right. Now, granted, like I said, defense, I'm big on defense. I care more about if my teammate, I tell people all the time, if you getting 15 and giving up 20, bye.
Yep.
Like, what are we talking about? It's a numbers game. You a liability if that's the case. So, but granted, I don't know her, I don't know her people, but I could tell my senses was that one, she's a competitor, she loves the ball, right? She wants freedom. Dawn Staley doesn't promote freedom. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
You might get a little room to wiggle, but you're gonna wiggle within a box.
It's going to be interesting to see her at LSU next to Flaugier, but
You gonna yeah. So I was surprised she stayed the second year, but I was not surprised to hear that she was gonna transfer. I was surprised that she transferred to LSU, more so
big
because of
surprise.
a rivalry thing. However, I
Went to
do.
the ops.
I do think Kim. I do think Kim will allow her more freedom than Dawn. But at the same, I'm curious to see how this dynamic is gonna work with all of the players on that team. They already got a big three, and I honestly don't think Malaysia is the wild card they need to get to the NCAA championship.
Mm,
So to me, it's gonna be interesting to watch this year.
very. So I want to switch back to your collegiate career. Um, I had another cousin. So I had one cousin that played football, one that played basketball for Purdue. She probably went to college the same time as you or a little bit later. Her name was Fakara Malone. She played for Purdue, and we thought she was going to go pro. But at that time period, I remember I was in college. I was doing papers. I was finding out what our women athletes were actually making in the WNBA, which opened my eyes back in like '09 or '10.
Right.
Was there a thought for you? Were you going to try to take that shot to try out for the W? And did you understand what was going on at that time as far as the payment system and what they were making? And did you say, well, the average at that time was like 45,000. I'm
Right.
just going to get out of here, go across seas, or get me a job. What was your thought process after college?
So you don't decide if you're gonna try out for the W. They invite you. If you
Yeah,
don't get an invite, you don't try out.
gotcha.
So it is that. Did I want to go pro? Absolutely. I love basketball. I wanted to play basketball the rest of my life. However, I didn't do what I was supposed to do as a college athlete in order to have a high stock to be in high demand professionally. So
Hmm.
that was totally on me. I wasn't the person I needed to be to take advantage of the opportunity during college in order to have that. And obviously, hindsight is 2020. So what I after college, I'll never forget. I had a conversation, and a person said to me, "Do you want to play pro?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Like, what else is there to this is now granted I'm 20, 21, 22. So I'm speaking with that mindset. I'm like, I don't want to do anything but play basketball. There's nothing else to do in life. That's the only thing that's
Yeah.
important to me, right? And so what I did was they had a show out or a showcase at the women's Final Four in '04. I think they have the showcase at the Final Four every year
Okay.
where players you now that you can just register for and go play, right? And obviously there's a bunch of scouts at the Final Four because they're looking at the college players. So they come to the showcase where it's pretty much just like open gym, and it kind of like blue
Mm.
chips, right? Where you get on the floor, you're supposed to do your thing, and that's your shot to impress one of these scouts, and hopefully you get a call. So I did that. I played okay. I didn't play well enough to make somebody call me. I was happy with how I played though. And then after that, I had an agent. I signed up with an agent out of New York City, and I would play in the West Fourth leagues. So after college, I ended up getting a job with the federal government. But every weekend, I would catch the Chinatown bus to New York City to go play at West Fourth for my agent because she was telling me, "Yo, I got connections overseas. I can get scouts here, blah 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 blah." So I did that for 2 years, and I only had one person try and talk to me, but to me, it wasn't even a worthy conversation. It was a
Mm.
coach. I'm gonna tell you why. One, it was a coach from Poland. It's freezing there,
Yeah.
so I was like, "That's not even an attractive place." Let's start there. Two, guards are we're not. I probably still aren't we're the guard market is saturated, right? So being as though I'm a guard, I didn't do what I was supposed to do in college. So now they looking at me already as a discount.
Mm.
My stock is low. I'm
Gotcha.
working a government job.
Government benefits.
Exactly.
It's a different type
At
of
that
money.
time I was already making 45,000 without leaving home, freezing cold, in a you know what I mean?
Yeah, that
And
that math is mathing.
exactly. And so the Poland coach was like, "Yeah, I like your game, but I don't know how much I can pay you." I, I was just
That'll
like,
be it
"Look,
for me.
I don't think there's anything else to talk about.
Yeah, that's a wrap.
Like, I got guaranteed money hitting my account every 2 weeks." I, yeah, thank you for the conversation, but no, thank you. And
Was
after the second summer, I was like, I don't want to be that person chasing a dream because obviously, like we have plenty of examples of that.
yeah.
So, and I was just like, I also don't want to be broke. You know what I mean? So it was just like, nah, I'll stay over here. And that
So
was that. Honestly, I regret it though. I
mm,
wish I had chased basketball, knowing what I know now, off the strength that I got all these years I could have sat in somebody's office. My
I was
time
just about to
frame,
ask you that.
the
Okay.
body, the body only got, but the body has an expiration date for when one day I'm gonna stop picking up a basketball and run up and down the court.
So you feel you put down your Iversons a little bit
Too soon.
premature?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. That's literally the only decision I regret in my life. All the rest of my decisions, mistakes, I'm cool with them.
I was just about to ask you. So at the time period you said for 2 years that you was going back and forth from your government job to playing in West Fourth, what was the work? What was the balance between that? As far as we talk about it a lot now with mental health and athletes,
Hmm.
did that weigh on you as a person? Because we all human beings.
Right,
You know, you want to have your personal time. You had a government job, then you got to get on a Chinatown bus that smelled like collard greens,
right.
and then travel to New York. And so, how did that weigh on your mental health as a person?
It didn't. I was doing what I loved.
Okay.
Catching. You gotta think. You gotta remember. I'm 22. I have no responsibilities. You know what I mean? So my government job, that was one of those something I have to do
Mm-hmm.
type of decisions because obviously I need money. I'm not going back to Albany. And when I got my government job, when I left Del State, I moved back to the DC area. So no family, no friends, or I had a couple friends from George Mason that still lived in the area. But obviously I'm in this area pretty much by myself, right?
Okay.
So and I knew in high school, early on in high school, I didn't want to come back to Albany. Whenever I left, I didn't want to come back. So it was like, no, I need a job to make sure I don't go back. That's that. But catching the bus every weekend, go to China to hoop. Come on, and I'm hooping in the city.
Okay.
Come, the
NYC. That's
mecca
a good
of
point.
trash talking, the mecca of
That's a good
talent, the
point.
mecca. Like, come on. And my cousin at the time, Jeff Thompson, he was living in Queens. Me and Jeff, we was like siblings. That was like my big brother. So I get to
Oh,
see
you
him
throwing
on a
out
regular
government names.
basis.
That's why I had to look up in the air. You said, okay, I know you're talking about.
Yeah,
You said it's
Guapo.
government. Yeah, yeah. I forgot. You put a government out
Right.
there.
Yeah,
I ain't
because
called him that in so many years.
that's what I call everybody by their government. So
Gotcha.
some of them hate me for that, but hey, that's what we was calling each other in the '90s.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
So yeah, he was living up there at the time. So I was up. I get to see my family. I get the hoop, and I get the hoop in the city. That's come on, nah. I was living my life. That was the greatest.
If you can recall, because you had many battles, what was your toughest battle on a court? And it doesn't have to be collegiate. It could be at, West Fourth or wherever.
The one that stands out the most. I went to an invite only camp at high school. Coach Sylvia Hatchell, North Carolina. When I was ninth or 10th grade. It might have been 10th grade. I think I was in 10th grade. And so it was the summer before my junior year. So we at the camp, and the North Carolina team, they're running the camp, right? Well, after the first or second day, because I can't remember if it was a 2-day camp or a 3-day camp, but after the first or second day, they picked a group of 10 girls from the camp to play pickup with them or against them. And I was one of the 10 that they handpicked to play against them. Well, that summer was the summer before Ivory Lotta's freshman year.
Ivory Lotta tore my damn cousin up.
Yo, she,
I think she gave my cousin nightmares at that championship game.
yo, that's when I knew, like, yeah, there's a
It's
difference.
levels.
There's
It's
levels.
levels.
Yo,
Yeah. She sent my cousin home packing.
yo, I was like, first and foremost, TV doesn't do her justice with speed. Let's get that straight.
Lightning.
She was the same way Iverson could go end to end in what, like 4 or 5 dribbles.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Ivory Lotta was. It was ridiculous speed, change of direction, and she never slowed down. That's one. But two, her strength. She was so strong. Yeah.
For her size, yeah.
That's when I was like I had no issues with my confidence, but I was like, yo, there was nothing I could do. Like it was nothing I could do to impact her game. I felt so.
Don't feel
I
bad,
was
Key.
so
She did it to
defeated.
everybody.
I was so defeated. I was like, yo, and she made me watch college basketball because I was like, yo, I gotta watch her games. I gotta watch her games. She made me watch college basketball.
That's dope. So let's speed through a little bit. My research is you transitioned into reffing before you got into coaching. You did a little
Right.
reffing.
Yeah,
So was that a way for you to stay close to the game?
it was. It was. Charlie Neal, sports commentator, HBCU, as well as non-HBCU schools, but he was a commentator for some of Dell State's ESPN games. And my Dell State coach, Coach Davis, he was cool with Charlie Neal, and he introduced me to him one day at the MEAC tournament. We happened to be in a lobby of the hotel at the same time getting breakfast. So fast forward, when I got my government job back in the DC area, I ended up linking up with Charlie Neal, and he was like, yo, if you don't go pro, first he was like, are you still trying to go pro? I said, yes, I'm going to give it 2 years, and then if it don't happen in 2 years, I'm hanging it up. And he was the one who presented the ideal of, have you ever thought about reffing? And I was like, honestly, no. I that not in a million years did I ever even consider that as an option. Like, I just wanted to hoop. And so he was like, go to this place at this time, ask for this person, they'll tell them I sent you, they'll train you. And so yeah, that's how I got into refereeing. And I actually, the person he sent it to, Liston Thomas, Lettuce Man of Death, he took me in under his wing, and he's a retired Marine, but a Marine through and through. My first game I ever reffed was a semi-pro game in Southeast DC. Grown
That
men,
got wild.
right?
That got
Exactly.
wild.
Talk
I know
about
the
being
area.
thrown in the water with sharks. First game I ever ref, semi-pro game, Southeast DC, and in the middle of the game, I lie to you not, he yelled at me, "If you don't blow that damn whistle, I'm gonna take it from you and make you keep running up and down the court." So talk about on-the-job training. Yeah, on the job training. But from there, he got me into DCIAA, which is basically DC public school, the public schools for DC. So I was refereeing there. That was like my real introduction into formal refereeing. From there, I went to Maryland JUCO, and I just kept networking, and several people took me under their wing as far as refereeing, and I just kept growing. Went from Maryland JUCO to D3 to D2, and eventually my last year I ended up reffing 2 games in the MEAC. So that was pretty cool. It was full circle moment. But to be honest, I still wanted to hoop. And even one of my mentors told me, she said, "You'll be a better referee when you stop playing," because I always saw the game as a player. So things would happen on the court, and I'm like, nah, they got to play through that. They like, "Kiana, that's a foul." I'm like, "No, it's not."
Not where we come from. Not
I'm
where
like,
we
nah,
come from.
that's not a foul. She got to play through that. You can't initiate contact and then you get bumped and you want to call. Nah, I call it even. They got to play through that.
They must didn't like you.
Nah, but be honest, a lot of players respected me because I would actually talk to the players. I wasn't one of those refs who was like, "Nah, you can't talk to me," or you know what I mean. I'm too, like I'm the referee, so I control it. Nah, what player come talk to me? I'd be like, "Yo, you did this move. You slowed down. You allowed her to get back in position.
You foul baited. You Jalen Brunson, man. You foul baiting out here.
People who would flop, I would tell them. I'd be like, "Yo, if you no lie, I would say if you bend your knees before the contact, you flopped. If you took it in the chest, you got the charge. But I'm always, if you bend your knees, I know for a fact you was already falling before they came."
That's a good point.
And so I would tell them, like, "Look, I can explain all my calls. And I can also admit when I messed up." And I'm like, "Yo, that was on me. I can't take it back, unfortunately, but I admit that was on me."
So, what we're seeing in the NBA today, past the 2000s, with all this Euro stepping, do you call that a travel? I just want to know from one referee to another, because this whole gather step and take, I'm gonna let the ball hang in my hand and take 4 steps and count it as 2. From a referee, what is that?
So the Euro step is not a travel. Euro step is
What about the James Harden Euro step?
that nonsense is a travel.
Okay.
All the way.
Okay.
I'm gonna say something controversial too. The step through is a travel.
No, it's not.
I'm gonna tell
That's
you
Jalen
why.
Brown's favorite move.
You ready to hear
My
me
man
out?
Jalen Brown loves
Are
that.
you ready
Go
to hear me
ahead.
out?
Go ahead, Key.
All right.
Here we go, man.
So now I'm gonna ask you a question. If I catch the ball, picture this though. If I catch the ball, right, and I establish a pivot.
Yep, left or right.
Let's say my right foot, that's my pivot. So I'm moving my left back and forth, right? All I did was catch the ball so far. So I'm still able to dribble or shoot. If I make a move to dribble and I pick up my pivot before I release the ball, is that a travel? Yes or no?
That is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Let's move forward. If I stop my dribble
Yep.
and I pick up the ball, let's say my right foot is my
Fake.
pivot.
Yep.
So I'm moving my left. If I step through with my left and then pick up my right foot, why is that not a travel? That is a travel.
Jaylen Brown, man.
That is a travel.
We gotta fix that,
I'm
brother.
telling you, that's why
That's your
people are
favorite
like,
move.
oh no, they changed the rules. I'm like, yeah, but if you watch them, they periodically call a travel when someone makes a move to dribble from a pivot. They'll say you dragged your pivot or you picked it up before you release. So why can I pick up my foot after I ended my dribble? Why can I pick up my pivot? It's a travel.
You're gonna irritate a lot of
I am
bowlers
going to
for
irritate
that,
a lot
but
of people and I don't care because it's a travel.
yeah, these new 2020 moves, man. Well, I'm glad a referee is calling it out. You the first referee I interviewed, so that's dope. Past your referee, I don't know if you're still refereeing, but I saw you on your social media saying you got into coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So how long have you been into coaching first?
So this is my third season coaching. Third season coaching. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Third season coaching. So 2 years with the current team and organization. The first team that I coached was what were they? I don't know, 10U in DC. They were boys, and I think the program was trying to revamp itself. So I had coached them, but yeah, it was just not organized, and to me it wasn't ran well, so I didn't stick with it. And I had been asked to coach before that, but I knew I wasn't in the right place in life to deal with other people's kids.
That's a good
I'm in
point.
a better place now.
That's a good point. So now, what's the age range? Are you 10 or 13? 13?
So I have 13U right now. I'm coaching 13U girls. Cross training athletes into believers. CTAB is the organization. Shout out to Lee and Daryl. It's a great organization ran by great people.
So seeing that you got to learn from some valuable coaches, and now you're in the position to teach young women that are growing into athletes.
Right.
What is your coaching style? Are you old school, or
Absolutely.
are you using your experience? How does that work for you?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The good thing is that I don't have... So the kids that I have on my team, they're all in their developmental stages. The feedback that I got from a lot of parents was that this is their first year being coached hard, as well as truly being taught the game, and being helped think the game through. So there's that. So there's a lot of growing pains that come with that, because not only are they developing IQ, but they're also developing skill. And they're not sitting there trying to do the NBA moves. So
Good point.
That, because they're not trying to emulate everything they see on TV, because honestly, I don't think they even watch a lot of basketball, to be honest. So there's a catch-22 with that. You know what I mean? I'm glad they're not trying to Euro step and gather, but
you still need some creativity.
Basketball.
Yeah.
But as far as like my philosophy, defense. Like I said earlier, defense is my signature, and I foot stomp. Even if the score ends 13-12, you still got a chance. Like, you always had a chance in that game because you were defending. So either you won or you had a chance to win. But if you don't play defense, and if you're not a bucket getter, you're going to get blown out every single game. And at the end of the day, one, you go hard. You go hard, you give 100%. There's no reason why you should still have energy to play another game when the game ends. So that's one. You give 110%. Two, you should take it personal when somebody scores on you.
Mm-hmm.
You should take it personal. If you are okay with being scored on, you got to come off the court. I got a problem with that. If you are okay with losing, you got the wrong coach. Not because you're never going to lose, but because you should never be okay with losing. Right? And then communication. You gotta communicate. You gotta communicate. So defense and communication, those are like my two main things. I'm like, look, I can do all the yelling, but I can't yell at 5 people at the same time. I'm like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So you always gotta talk. Y'all gotta have each other's backs. Yeah, and to be a great defensive team, everybody gotta move. Everybody gotta talk. So those are that's my philosophy. My philosophy is defense, 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 defense. I'm like, you gotta make people remember you. Win, lose, or draw, make people remember they played you.
I got a few more questions before we wrap this up.
All right.
So
I
you
don't mean to
said
get
you
long
put
winded. Talking about
nah, you
basketball.
good. You good. Um, so you said you kind of felt like you hung up your Iversons a little too soon, but now you're in a position where you get to teach
hmm
the next generation. What is something that you saw in yourself that you want to pass on to the next generation of hoopers?
Don't let your frustration take yourself out the game. Do not let your frustration take yourself out of the game. That was something I learned too late. I I I would always get down on myself if I missed a shot that I knew I should have made. And as a result, it would it would result in me not taking the next open shot, passing up a shot. And I would get yelled at, Key, you gotta shoot, Key, you gotta shoot. And I would just pass it, create the pass to somebody else. But at the end of the day, it would hurt the team.
Mm,
And so I think that's one of the things that I definitely tell my kids. I say, hey, you gotta have short term memory loss. I can care less about the shots you miss. Yes, I'm still gonna yell if you miss a layup, but I need you to. But at the end of the day, if you still on the floor, obviously I'm not that mad at you.
yep, got some confidence.
So you gotta have short term. That's what I tell them. I say, hey, you gotta have short term memory loss. If you miss 10 shots, you gotta have faith and you gotta have confidence that the work you put in the gym is gonna lead to you making number 11. So that's the one thing that I learned way too late that I try to instill in my kids now. Have short term memory loss. Get it back the next play. If the clocks did not strike zeros, you still got a chance to make it right.
I got two more questions. This one might be a hard one. So tune into the WNBA. The W is about to start, or it is starting.
Preseason.
Who was on your Mount Rushmore?
That's four, right?
Yeah, you could have a fifth as a special one.
All right. So I got to start with Cynthia Cooper.
Okay.
That's one of the first people, when the WNBA started. My father took me to New York Liberty games. Definitely saw Cynthia Cooper play in person. So Cynthia Cooper for sure. Um, but if we gotta say now, I gotta drop down to I gotta pass by some years. Um, you gotta give it up for DT Diana Taurasi.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely gotta give it up to her. Um, Maya Moore.
So we got two on the same
Yeah,
list. Okay.
even though she cut her career short for
They mad at
admirable
her, man.
reasons.
They mad at her, man.
Yeah, I
Come
respect it.
on, man. We had two more championships, but
I know, but I
much
respect it.
respect to them.
I respect people who who do what she did, firmly, strongly believe in something and go all out for it. So kudos to her for that. But yeah, Maya Moore for sure. A fourth. You're right. This is hard. A fourth. Hmm. I'm gonna go ask Asia. I love Asia Wilson. I flat out love Asia Wilson. There's plenty of people I could have put in for that fourth, but I love Asia Wilson. For her to be the size that she is, to have, because it's different for women. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
when you, what is she? Probably
She's
like
six
six
four,
four.
6'5", well,
Yeah,
6'4.5".
exactly. And to have the moves that she had, to develop that skill that she developed. Clearly, she was not doing when she was at South Carolina. So, like, I love Asia Wilson in the way that she continued to get better. And to me, that's nothing but love and respect for the game.
Hmm. That's a dope four. We got a similar Mount Rushmore. Mine's is Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi. I got Sylvia Fowles on mine,
Hmm.
and I'm a huge Candace Parker fan, so I picked Candace Parker on mine.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, definitely, yeah. She definitely easily could have been up there. I mean, there's several people that I love, but yeah,
That
for sure.
so want to ask first because I don't want to assume. I don't know if your parent is living or not.
They are.
Is your
Both of them are.
okay? So by the time this comes out, Mother's Day would have hit because it's Mother's Day weekend.
Right.
So I want to give you the platform to speak to anything that life lessons that you gained from your mother or anything positive you would like to say to your mother in honor of Mother's Day that's coming up.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, thank you. Shout out to my mother, Valerie Landy, the one and only. Um, my mother. What I learned from my mother was a few things. One, don't leave that house looking crazy. Don't leave the house looking like somebody don't love you.
That's what I tell my son, man. If you don't, boy,
Don't have no ashy lips. No crust in the eyes. So yeah, my mother always made sure we were put together. But also work ethic. My mother wasn't too proud to get an additional job. You know what I mean? In addition to her 9 to 5. So yeah. So shout out, Happy Mother's Day, Happy early Mother's Day, or late Mother's Day, or belated Mother's Day, depending on when it's come out. Yeah, to
yeah, the
my
beginning
mom.
of next week, but
Yeah, to my mom Dukes. Appreciate that.
salute. So I'm gonna end off like this. I appreciate you taking your time out to have this convo with me. Appreciate you inspiring me. I know you probably didn't know. You was like, yo, who's this dude hit me on my Facebook? But I definitely had to speak truth to power. You really inspired what I do with media as far as respecting the women's game for what you did and the other young lady, Deanna. You guys were ferocious from Albany. So definitely had to give it up to you, give you your flowers.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the opportunity for and even thinking I'm worthy of an interview, a podcast session. So thank you.
You was snatching some ankles. Mine was a couple. So yeah, definitely. Key, I definitely appreciate you taking time out. Everything you doing. Much success on to you and your coaching
Thank you.
and everything. Oh, before we leave off, so I want to ask this: with everything you give into the game, do you feel you left it in the correct place from when you picked it up at? That's my last question. Even with your coaching.
Yes, as well as I'm still pouring into it. So I'm not done.
I'm gonna end it there. I like that. I appreciate it, Key.
Thank you.